I need 16 eggs. It's a lot of eggs, but it's a lot of people. 3 or 4 per person. So I'm gonna scramble the eggs, I'm gonna make the mixture here, and then take it outside and cook it on the grill. And then after they're cooked, I'm just gonna put some goat cheese in it. It's a great combination. And one of the things I learned about scrambled eggs that was really interesting is I used to put a lot of liquid in because I thought that made it light and fluffy. But in fact, it's just the opposite. If you put too much liquid into scrambled eggs, what happens is the liquid sort of oozes out. Have you ever seen that when you make scrambled eggs? So in fact, you use less liquid and they're lighter and fluffier. Who knew? So instead of adding a lot of liquid, I'm just gonna add half a cup of half and half. 1½ teaspoons of salt. 3/4 teaspoon of pepper, and just give it a whisk. Okay, that's the scrambled egg mixture. And later, when they're on the grill, when they're just barely cooked, I'm gonna melt some gorgeous goat cheese into it. So I've got a pan with a little bit of butter in it. I'm just gonna put it right in. So this is scrambled eggs, a little bit of cream, half and half actually, salt and pepper. That's simple. And after they're cooked, I'm gonna add goat cheese and chives. It's gonna be really good. Okay, can you stir the scrambled eggs?
Absolutely.
You're the scrambled eggs expert.
This is my specialty.
It is. I'm gonna get the goat cheese ready. So once those are done, I'm just gonna add goat cheese and chopped chives.
And it has to be really slow.
Really slow, really creamy. So I've got 6 ounces of goat cheese, and when the scrambled eggs are just about done, I'm gonna add them in, and some chopped chives. I love fresh chives.
It will be perfect.
It's a great combination, isn't it? I love something fresh in scrambled eggs, like chives or scallions or parsley or some kind of fresh herb is always great. Perfect. Ready for cheese?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna crumble it right in.
Thanks.
Nothing like doing this in the wind.
Oh, this is gonna be so good on it.
It's so good because it's just, and pull it off the heat a little bit so it
You're
just
right.
melts in.
You're right.
Just messy, but good.
Oh. They are going to love this.
I love the tomatoes and the sausages and, okay, and how about some chives?
Right
You
on
ready
top.
for that? Okay.
Yep.
Fresh chives. How good does that
How
look?
beautiful is that?
We're good cooks.
Absolutely.
Little self-congratulations, always good. And you're not gonna believe this, just a little pat of butter at the end makes it even better.
Wonderful.
It just melts right into it. I like the idea of a breakfast party. And those are done, perfect. Okay, everybody, bon appetit. How are the eggs?
They're so
Eggs are
good.
great.
They're just delicious.
First, I need 12 tablespoons of unsalted butter. That's 1½ sticks. 1/3 cup of brown sugar. I use light brown sugar. It's really important that the butter be room temperature so you can mix it. Just mix those together. Okay, that's that. These are all made in muffin pans. So I'm just gonna put like a tablespoon in the bottom of each cup. These are actually done upside down. So I'm putting the brown sugar and pecans and butter in the bottom, and then the pastry in the top. And then when they're done, I'm gonna dump them out and they'll be right side up. So that's the butter and sugar. And now I'm gonna put some pecans on the top of each one. Okay, that's the topping. Now for the puff pastry. When I thought of making this with puff pastry, I was hoping it was gonna be as good as the original. And what I found out is it's even better. You buy frozen puff pastry in the grocery store, or especially a food store. What I do is I defrost it overnight in the refrigerator. You wanna keep it really cold, because it's important that the butter stay really cold in the sheets of puff pastry. So, put this on a board, a little bit of flour so it doesn't stick. No point in making it if it sticks to the board or the counter. So I'm just gonna unfold this. Perfect. A little bit of melted butter, brush on the pastry. The key to this is really keeping it very cold, because when the heat of the oven hits the butter and the pastry, it causes steam to rise, and that's actually what makes it light and flaky. Okay. Need 1/3 cup of brown sugar. Sort of pack it lightly. And I'm gonna leave a little border, like 1.5 inches around the outside, and then just distribute the brown sugar around so it's even. Okay, so that's the brown sugar. And 1½ teaspoons of cinnamon. So just distribute it evenly. Again, leaving it 1½ inch border. And then next part is raisins, ½ cup of raisins. That should be about ½ cup. Now, what I'm gonna do is roll it up. You wanna roll it up pretty tightly, but not press on it. You wanna just roll it up snugly. And that's why the flour is important, because you just don't want it sticking to the board. And this is the reason you leave the edge. So the butter will make the puff pastry stick at the edge. I'm gonna cut off the ends, just so that you don't have a ragged edge. I'm gonna cut it in half, and then cut each half in thirds. Okay, and then these are just gonna go right into these pans with the brown sugar and butter and pecans. Just press them lightly. Okay, into the oven, 400 degrees for about 30 minutes until the pastry is firm to the touch and the butter and brown sugar and pecans are caramelized. I'm starting with 4 cups of flour, and I'm gonna make chocolate pecan scones. Nothing boring about that. One more, 4 cups. So just scoop it and level it off. Okay, a little bit of sugar, 2 tablespoons. Not too sweet, just a little. 2 tablespoons of baking powder, which is why they're so light and flaky. 4 teaspoons of salt. Okay, so I'm just gonna mix this together. And now I've got really cold butter. It's 3 sticks of butter, 3/4 of a pound. I'm gonna put it in and just let the mixer do its thing until the butter is about the size of peas. So next I need 4 eggs and a cup of heavy cream. I didn't say they were low calorie, I just said they were delicious. And I'm just gonna whisk the eggs and the cream together. So as soon as the flour is just the right consistency, where you can see the butter is just in little bits, then I'm gonna add the wet ingredients. Just put them in slowly. It's gonna be really wet, but that's what makes really good scones. Okay, next are the chocolate and pecans. So I've got 1½ cups of medium diced bittersweet chocolate and 1 cup of chopped pecans. I'm just gonna toss them together. And to make sure they get well distributed, I'm gonna put in 3 tablespoons of flour, just to coat them a little bit. And make sure they get distributed in the dough. Okay, here goes. So I'm gonna turn this on low and then just slowly add it in. Okay, now comes the fun part. I'll dump out the dough onto a very well-floured board and knead it a few times to be sure that chocolate and pecans are well distributed, adding a little flour so the dough doesn't stick to the board. Then I'll roll out the dough 1 inch thick with a floured rolling pin. Dip a 3-inch cutter in flour, cut out the scones, and place them on 2 parchment-lined sheet pans. Okay, I'm just gonna egg wash the scones now. So I've mixed 1 egg with 2 tablespoons of water. So that's the egg wash. And then just a little bit of sugar on the top, just to give it a little sweet crunch, as though they're not sweet enough. I'll bake the scones at 400 degrees for 10 minutes. Then switch the pans around so they cook evenly and bake them for another 10 minutes. When the tops are lightly browned and the insides are fully baked, I'll take them out and put them on a platter. Ta-da! Gorgeous scones. These look amazing. So I'm starting with 1 cup of ricotta, whole milk ricotta. Next is a cup of buttermilk. You always want to be sure to shake the buttermilk because it settles, but it's got a richness about it that's different from regular milk and a tangy flavor. So far it sounds pretty good, right? Not like ordinary pancakes. Okay, 3 extra large eggs. I'm just gonna whisk these together. Okay, next, 1/4 cup of sugar. I want them to be a little sweet. 1½ tablespoons of grated lemon zest. These are really lemony pancakes. 1½, that's perfect. And 1/4 cup of freshly squeezed lemon juice. and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, pure vanilla extract, as opposed to the imitation stuff. Just whisk this together. Okay, that's the wet ingredients. Next, the dry. So I need 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup of cornstarch, which is gonna make them really tender, tablespoon of baking powder, make them light, 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt, just makes them taste good. So that's the dry ingredients. Just mix this in. You don't want to over-mix it because you'll end up with tough pancakes. We want really tender pancakes. Fold it in just enough so that the flour's just mixed in. I'm just going to let it sit for 5 minutes, and that allows the gluten in the flour to relax. Makes a really tender pancake. Okay, that's the batter. I'm going to let it sit, and I'm going to prep the figs. So this is what I have. I have fresh figs. They're so delicious. I'm going to cut this in 1/2-inch dice. Try and get ripe figs if you can, but if they're a little underripe, don't worry, because when you cook them, they kind of sweeten and caramelize. Okay, that's 8 figs, 1/2-inch diced. Let's make some pancakes. So I'm starting with clarified butter, and this is what it is. I took some butter, I put it in a pitcher, I put it in the microwave for 30 seconds to melt it. And the milk solids go to the bottom, and that's what burns. The clear liquid on top has a higher burning temperature, and since I don't want burnt pancakes, I'm just gonna use the clear liquid. 2 tablespoons of clarified butter for each batch. And here's my pro tip. I use an ice cream scoop. That way all the pancakes are exactly the same size. I'm only making 3 pancakes, but this batter will make 14. Just place a couple of figs on each pancake. Just make sure every bite has fig in it. So it's about 3 minutes on one side. You're just waiting for bubbles to appear on the top. And this is great when you flip it over. The other side cooks, but the figs really cook too. Okay, big plate. Let's see how these guys are doing. The other side cooks pretty quickly. So you want to press them, and when it springs back, kind of like a cake, they're done. So these guys are done. Butter. This is totally decadent. A little maple syrup, because I love maple syrup. Right there. A little dusting of fresh lemon zest on the top, because that's the first thing you'll taste. Hot pancakes, my favorite. And you can really see the figs inside. Look how fabulous. Don't mind if I do. Mmm. The figs are so flavorful. And the ricotta and the buttermilk and the lemon. Those are definitely my favorite pancakes. Wow, look how fabulous. Not bad. But the main centerpiece of the meal is a potato basil frittata. So in the pan here, I've cooked about 2 cups of boiling potatoes. They're the firm, round ones rather than the baking potatoes. And I peeled them and just cooked them in a little butter for about 10 or 15 minutes until they're really just tender and browned. And they should be perfect right now. Now I'm going to make the basis of it, which is this gorgeous omelet all mixed together. I'm going to start with, just like an omelet, 8 eggs. And I actually find that you can use whatever's left over from dinner. If you have chicken and broccoli the night before, it makes a delicious frittata. Counting. 1 more. I'm going to just scramble them a little bit. And then we're going to add lots of great flavorings. About 15 ounces of ricotta, which is 1 whole small container. And then 3/4 of a pound of Gruyere cheese. Gruyere's it's wonderful, like Swiss cheese. I know, it's eggs, cheese, and butter. It's delicious. How bad can that be? And then a little bit of butter. The last major food group. I'm not suggesting you eat this every day, but once in a while for a treat, it's wonderful. And then basil. I think basil is just such a great flavoring. So I'll just take the leaves off the stems and chop them very roughly. I love the smell of fresh basil. And then the last 2 ingredients are 1/3 of a cup of flour to give it a little substance, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder to make it rise. So I'm going to stir this all together. Make sure it's nicely blended. Cheeses and the basil and eggs. And that's it. I'm just going to pour this right over the potato. And then this whole thing goes in the oven. So instead of making individual omelets for everybody, I have one big omelet and we're all gonna share it. So it goes in the oven at 350 degrees for about 50 minutes to an hour, and it's gonna be puffed and golden and delicious. Oh, how gorgeous is that? Whew. And just in case you're all still hungry, I have a potato basil frittata.
What's in this, Ina?
It's potatoes and basil
Still
and Gruyere and ricotta, and it's beautiful. Devin, ricotta. There are a lot of voices coming from over here. It's hot, hot, hot.
Oh, fantastic. Are there leaks in it?
Thank you. I think that one's. This is my idea of a great way to start the day. So I'm going to make herb baked eggs for Jeffrey and me. Watch how easy this is. It's great. So I'm going to mix together 1/4 teaspoon of fresh thyme right in this bowl. 1/4 teaspoon of fresh rosemary. There's all kinds of French herbs. You want to use it judiciously because it's such a strong herb. And be sure that you chop it really well. Into the bowl. 1/4 teaspoon of fresh garlic. This has all kinds of Provençal flavors in it. One tablespoon of chopped parsley. You can either use flat leaf or curly parsley. I kind of like a rough chop. It doesn't have to be too finely chopped. One tablespoon of parsley, and 1 tablespoon of Parmesan cheese. Just be sure to use good fresh Parmesan cheese. Okay, so these are the gratin dishes that the eggs are going to go into. And I'm going to crack 3 eggs into each bowl. You want to do it really carefully so you don't break the yolks. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of butter, put it in the gratin dish, a little bit of cream, just drop, oops. I'm going to put these on a tray, and I made some little pieces of toast I'm going to serve with the eggs. I'm going to put these in the broiler for about 3 minutes till the dish gets really hot and the butter is nice and bubbly. And then when the eggs hit, they'll start to cook immediately. So the cream and butter for the eggs, probably done. Perfect. It's nice and hot and bubbly. I'm going to carefully slide the eggs into each one so I don't break the yolks. They'll just start to cook immediately. So the dish is really hot. And then I'm going to put on my mixture of thyme, garlic, rosemary, parsley, and Parmesan. It's all very Provençal. Salt and pepper. Into the broiler for about 5 minutes until it's hot and bubbly and delicious. Eggs are perfect. The whites are firm and the yolks are still soft. Salads, very French. Hope Jeffrey likes it. So, you look very comfortable sitting there.
Oh, that looks great.
Like my French-inspired flowers.
What do you got there?
I have baked eggs with Provençal
Isn't
herb.
that lovely?
And then later, the way the French have a salad after the meal, I have an endive salad with blue cheese and pears.
Oh, that is just delicious.
This is a challah. It's an egg bread that's been braided. It's sort of a traditional Jewish bread, but you can use any kind of egg bread or brioche bread that comes in a loaf. I'm just going to leave this to dry out a little bit, so when I mix it with a custard, it'll just absorb all that flavor. So the custard, 6 eggs, and I always try and crack the eggs on the board rather than on the side of the dish so you don't get shells in them. I like to use extra large eggs, but you can really use large eggs, anything that you have around. Extra large eggs, I find, are better value. There's more egg per dollar. How's that for an esoteric fact? Okay. And the next thing is milk, or half and half if you really want to be over the top. It's a cup and a half of whole milk, or half and half. I want to keep my husband around for a long time, so I'll use milk. I'm just going to whisk it in. When I was thinking about this recipe, I wanted to make traditional French toast, but I really wanted to pump up the flavor. So Challah does that, which is great, but also I wanted the custard to have more flavor. So what I'm going to do is, I'll show you, I'm going to add orange, which is a really traditional breakfast kind of thing, my handy-dandy microplane, which I love. So I'm going to add a little bit of orange, maybe about a teaspoon. But really make this to your own taste. If you like more orange or less orange, play with it until you get it exactly right. And the next thing's vanilla. So about half a teaspoon of vanilla and honey. Honey will sweeten it, but I think it sweetens it with more flavor than sugar. This white sugar really doesn't do anything for me. And doesn't that look good? And the last thing is a pinch of salt. It's amazing how much salt makes a difference in a recipe like this. So now the custard has lots of flavor. When I'm going to soak the bread, it'll just absorb all that good flavor. I'm going to soak the challah in the custard just a couple of minutes on both sides. Just sort of hold it down so it gets nicely soaked. If you can soak it for 5 minutes, it's great. If you don't have the time and you're too hungry, it's okay. But the longer you soak it, and actually the drier the bread is, the better. I actually saw one recipe where you had to let it sit for half an hour. Now, just imagine that everybody's sitting waiting for breakfast, and you have to stand there for half an hour and let it soak. Forget it. So while that's soaking, I'm going to get the butter. So I'm going to have about a tablespoon of butter. When I'm sautéing things, I want to mix butter and oil because I'll get the flavor of the butter with the high burning temperature of the oil. So about a tablespoon of oil should do it. That's perfect. Get it nice and hot, sizzly. So it's good and hot, but not burning. All right, in they go. I'm going to cook these for about 3 minutes on each side until they're nice and browned. And while that's happening, I'm going to soak the next slices of bread, which is about the same amount of time, 3 minutes. It works out perfectly. Just like that. This is going to be so good with hash browns, turkey sausage, and then a treat for dessert. I think my husband's going to be thrilled. So I'm going to serve the French toast with a drizzle of really good maple syrup, and maybe a dusting of confectioner sugar would be good. So these look like they're perfectly done. I'm going to put them on a sheet pan, put them in the oven. It's a really moist sour cream cake with a streusel in the middle. I'm going to start with 1½ sticks of butter, 1½ cups of sugar, and I'm going to cream that together until it's light and fluffy. And then I'm going to start on the dry ingredients. Okay, so the first ingredient is cake flour. Cake flour I found is a little lighter and fluffier, so that's what I use. 2½ cups of cake flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, makes it nice and fluffy, ½ teaspoon of baking soda, ½ teaspoon of salt. Sift that together. I'm going to add 3 eggs, some good vanilla, really important in this. 1½ teaspoons. And 1¼ cups of sour cream. This is what makes it really moist. one, and ugh, got it all over the mixer too. Okay, now I'm going to turn it on low, lowest speed, and just slowly add all the dry ingredients, just with your hand. And beat it just until they're really mixed. Now for the streusel, the good part. So I'm going to just combine it in a bowl, 1/4 cup of light brown sugar, 1/2 cup of flour. This is the crumbly part of and the flavorful part. 1½ teaspoons of ground cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 3 tablespoons of butter, which I'm going to just crumble into the streusel. Clean hands, best tools. Sour cream. I don't know how traditional walnuts are for a streusel cake, but I'm going to add some because I think it turns up the flavor. So about 3/4 cup of chopped walnuts. You can just buy them already chopped. But if you don't like walnuts, just leave them out. It's still delicious. And just crumble all of that together. Okay, now I'm going to put the cake together. But I've buttered and floured this. What I'm going to do is put half the batter in the bottom. I'm going to take 3/4 of the streusel and just spread it evenly on the top of the batter. So there's going to be streusel in the middle of this cake as well as on the top. I'm going to take the rest of the batter, put it on top. Just sort of place it on top, and then I'll smooth it out later. And then more streusel on top. And it's amazing how much this gets really moist and light. So into the oven, 350 degrees for 50 to 60 minutes, and we're going to have a really good cake. So my philosophy is too much is never enough. So I'm going to add a maple drizzle to this to make it even better, and it's really easy. 1/2 cup of confectioner sugar. And 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. I really like good maple syrup. Not the stuff that says syrup-like or syrup-flavored, or it's really maple syrup. Okay, that's perfect. Even better. Just want it to drizzle down the side a little bit. This is actually not about being perfect. It's about being a little messy. So that's 3 cups of flour. I need 2 cups of sugar. Okay, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Most muffin batters pretty much start the same way. It's what you put in them that makes the difference. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Okay, those are the dry ingredients. Just sift them together. And this is why you sift things together, so you can make sure it's all smooth. Okay, dry ingredients into the mixer. Okay, now the wet ingredients. 2 eggs. 3/4 cup of milk. Two teaspoons of vanilla. Love vanilla. And 1/2 pound of melted butter, cooled. If that butter were hot, we'd have scrambled eggs instead of muffins. Okay, into the dry ingredients, and we've got muffin batter. Don't overmix it, otherwise you have really tough muffins. Just one mix with a spatula. And then tomorrow, just before they go in the oven, I'm going to add coconut, chopped bananas, granola, all kinds of delicious things. Make sure it's really well mixed. So the next thing I want to do is finish my banana crunch muffins. This is the batter I made last night, but I'm going to add the bananas today because I don't want it to turn brown. Okay, so that's 2 bananas mashed. It's about a cup of bananas right into the batter. This is a great way to use bananas that are just about to go bad. And then for texture, I'm going to add 1 banana chopped. So when you bite into it, you get a little banana. So just slice it in half and slice it lengthwise. And just chop it. Okay, right into the batter. Okay, now, 1 cup of granola. Use any kind of granola, but use a good one. One cup of diced walnuts. 1 cup of coconut. It's got great texture in the muffins. Right in. Okay, mix it all together. Sort of fold it into the batter. These are great breakfast flavors: banana, granola. Take a little bit of oil, like a vegetable oil, anything you have around, and brush the tops of the muffin pans. When they bake and they puff up, it'll be really easy to get them out of the pan. And then I always use these cups because it also helps take them out. There's just no point in making muffins if you can't get them out of the pan. Okay, that's 12. That's to start. And this is the other trick, is an ice cream scoop. Just a regular ice cream scoop. You can buy it at the hardware store. Just a rounded scoop like that, right into the cup. You have professional muffins every time because they'll all be exactly the same size. This is going to make about 18 muffins. I've dried banana chips. I'm just going to just crunch up a little bit on the top. But you can use coconut or the granola, whatever you have left over. 1 pan done. I'm going to bake them at 350 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes. So I'm going to make cheddar buttermilk biscuits. The key to making good biscuits is really cold ingredients: butter, eggs, milk. So I need 1½ sticks of butter. It's incredibly important to have really cold ingredients when you're making biscuits, because when the heat of the oven hits the biscuits, it hits the butter, and the steam causes them to puff up, so they're really light and flaky. Some people actually even also freeze the flour, but I think that's a little extreme. Okay, the dry ingredients. 2 cups of flour. Just want to lighten the flour with your cup. It's really not necessary to sift it. All-purpose flour. Because I want really light and flaky biscuits. Tablespoon of baking powder. Seems like a lot, but it's really worth it. 1½ teaspoons of salt, so they have lots of flavor. Okay, next for the butter. It's unsalted butter. Put it in with the flour and just mix it until it's about the size of peas. Okay, now buttermilk and egg. Buttermilk's actually great. It keeps baking really moist, and it's low fat too. It's pretty hard to argue when you just put 12 tablespoons of butter in something, but what the heck. So I need 1/2 cup of buttermilk, 1 egg, and both of these are really cold, so it'll keep the butter cold. I'm just going to whisk them together. Okay, can't make cheddar buttermilk biscuits without good cheddar. I actually love like Vermont cheddar or English cheddar, something really sharp. You really know it's cheddar. So I need about 1 cup. I'm just going to grate it on a big box grater. You can do this in a food processor, but you might get the food processor all dirty. I know Stephen loves cheddar biscuits, so I think it'll be perfect for him. So the goal is really light, flaky biscuits with lots of flavor. And the buttermilk is going to give it a little bit of a tangy flavor, and the cheddar's going to just give it so much flavor. Okay, that should be just about a cup of good cheddar. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix it with a little flour so it doesn't clump in the biscuits. Just a tablespoon or so. And then 1 cup of grated cheddar. And just mix it all together. Okay, so now I'm ready to put it all into the mixture. So you want the butter the size of peas in the flour, and it's perfect right now. So I'm just going to put it in the wet ingredients. So cold buttermilk and cold egg. Just pour it in pretty quickly. And the cheddar mixed with a little bit of flour. Okay, that's it. It's really fast. I'm gonna clear the decks, roll it out. So, little flour for the deck. Make sure they don't stick. And the dough, just dump it right out. I'm just gonna give it a quick knead, not so much that you melt the butter in the dough. Use lots of flour so that they don't stick to the deck. No point in making biscuits if you can't get them off the countertop. Okay, just keep flouring it, making sure it moves around on the deck. So I'm gonna do a rectangle, maybe about 10 inches by 5 inches, and I'll get 8 buttermilk biscuits out of it. So about 3/4 of an inch thick, somewhere between 1/2 and 3/4 of an inch thick. Do it in a nice rectangle like that. Okay, big knife. And sometimes you even flour the knife to make sure they don't stick. Cut it right down the middle. This is the part where I couldn't find the cutter, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna cut them up. And they came out really rough and very homemade looking. I love them, just like that. Okay, onto a sheet pan. My friend Steven's really busy and he loves to entertain, and tomorrow I'm gonna show him how easy it is to give a breakfast party. So these are gonna go into the refrigerator. And then tomorrow, I'm gonna brush them with egg wash and sprinkle them with cheddar, and they're gonna be so good when they come out of the oven. I'm gonna show Stephen that even somebody as busy as he is can make a breakfast party. Are you busy making cheddar cheese?
I am so busy.
I made your favorite buttermilk cheddar biscuits. You're gonna really like them. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna glaze them, put a little egg wash on.
Okay.
How's that?
Tell me about an egg wash.
Egg wash is just an egg and a little bit of water or milk. Just whip it up. And what it does is, it gives a nice brown glaze to the biscuits. You know, like your mother used to make? Did your mother used to make biscuits?
My mother did not make biscuits.
So I'm just gonna brush these with the egg wash. And you're gonna put cheddar cheese on the top.
Ready for a little sprinkling?
Go for it.
Okay. Can there be too much here?
Never too much cheddar. Can I help you?
Yeah.
Okay, right on top.
Okay.
Perfect. Oh, that might be too much cheddar. And how about a sprinkling of salt? Just gives a really nice flavor to it and looks great when it's baked. Okay, into the oven, 425 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes until they're puffed and browned and just delicious. And then we're gonna make a breakfast cocktail.
A breakfast buzz. I love it.
Okay, this needs to be shaken for like 30 seconds.
I think
You're
I
on
can
while I
handle
get the
that.
biscuits out of the oven.
Okay. I've always wanted to do the bartender thing. Those are looking good.
Aren't they great? They smell great.